Hi, my name is Mitch Lee from BeatDrop, and thanks for downloading the Stank pack. In this video, I want to show off 3 different ways that you can make use of it. The first 2 ways are with the push, and the third way is for users that just own Ableton and that don't own a push. So let's get started. Alright, so this is the first way we want to show you how to use this pack. It's in 64 pad drum mode in Ableton and using the push. And this is really why we made this pack, was to jam and to pad drum with. We were really inspired by the 64 pad lab pack that Mad Zach put out with Ableton. It was so fun to play and they did such a great job. We wanted to do something similar and give it away for free. So if you guys check out the PDF that we gave you when you downloaded this, it mapped out how things were mapped in this pack. So the first 16 pads are drums. The top left quadrant is all bass sounds. The top right quadrant is leads, and the bottom right quadrant are pads. And interesting to note is these 2 lines here are primarily loops. These are all bass loops here. Bass loop 1, 2, 3, 4. We have lead loop 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have pad loops. Pad loop 1, 2, 3, 4, all conveniently there for you, and I'll explain why. And we only made 1 drum loop here, and this is great for beginners and people who are just starting. So I want to show off how to use this and kind of for beginners, and then I'll move up in complexity. So I'm going to start off by just triggering loops. And it's really, really fun, and something to understand is these are all in 4 bars, so you really need to know how to count music. And so I'm going to play a couple for you, and let's count this out, okay? So I'm going to trigger bass loop 1 and lead line number 2. So together, here we go. 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so one way you guys can use this is really simply is trigger the drum loop and trigger bass loop 1, and for this little routine, let's use lead loop number 2. So the first instance, I'm gonna bring in the drums on measure number 2. Okay, so let's count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Now we're gonna add the drums. 3, 2, 3, 4, and you'll notice the drums keep going for another 2 bars here. Okay, because it's a 4-bar loop as well. Okay. So it's kind of fun to play these 2 together and then just trigger the drums. Another way to add to this progression is you could play those same lines again and just work on hi-hat. So it'll sound like this. My hi-hat is here, open hi-hat is there. So I'm going to do 1/8 notes on the hi-hat, and I'm going to trigger these. So I'm playing every 1/8 note. So that's just trying to get the tempo down. So that could be a good exercise. Why don't we try adding a kick and snare? So this is a fun way to work on your timing. So we all know that in kind of funk, this kind of music, typically the kicks are on the 1s and the 1s and the 3s, and the snares or the claps are on the 2s and the 4s. Kick drums move all over the place to make it more funky, but for sure the snare is on beats 2 and 4. So let's trigger these again, and let's work on our drumming here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really fun. We can keep triggering that. If we get a little bit more advanced, we can add some hi-hats. This is actually a hi-hat here too, and there's an open hi-hat here. So let's try that with the open hat. Let's trigger the same loops, bass loop 1 and lead loop 2. Here we go. And if you get a little bit more advanced, you could hit the kick at the same time here, and you could trigger the loop. So let's try this. Alright, one other routine I want to show off is making use of the chords in the pad section. So in this line here, we made two we made 4 different chords that all work in a chord progression in this key. And these are some other chords we did in a different sound. But one way you can do is start off by using these chords, and then you can bring in another bass line, and you can bring in the drums, and it's a really fun way of working and jamming on it. So let's mess around with this. One thing I wanted to show off is a little, if you mistake and hit other pads, one of the ways, instead of waiting for the loop to end, if you hit shift play, it stops all the clips. So if I got all these things going, I can hit shift play, boom, it cuts it and stops everything. It's a nice little fail-safe panic button, you can say. So let's show you this routine. What I'm going to do is play these chords. So let's add some drums. Let's add a little Wilhelm. Let's try a fill. So you get it, like you can add, we get the fills up there. You can mess around and play this for days. It's so much fun. This second way is using the step sequencer capabilities inside the push. So let's check that out. So let's get out of 64 pad drum mode by hitting this layout button, and make sure you can use a touch strip to move up and down your drum rack. And I want to be on the kick drum, and I know I want my kick drums to be on beat number 1 of the bar. So it's counted by, it's counting like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So my snares I want on my 2s. This 808 snare I want there too, just to layer it a little bit. And my claps I want to be there as well. But the claps I want to be nudged a little bit to the left to give them a little bit to come in. So I'm going to just hold this down. I'm going to nudge them just so that they, if I look on my clip in Ableton, you'll notice that they happen right before the 2. So hi-hats, we can add those in. Okay, so we got a basics of a beat. So that would be step sequencing the beat. So, and then what's fun, we just simply move up the drum rack with our touch strip, and now I have our bass lines. And you'll remember, these are the 4 bass loops. So instead of playing these, all I have to do is select this one and make sure it's on beat 1, and let's hit play, and it'll re-trigger beat 1. Okay, shift play just to stop it. Let's move up now. What do we got here? Got some little arpeggios. I want to add that on beat 1. I like that. Shift play to stop it. Why don't we play those in? Hit record. Okay, so we got a little bass line idea, we got a little lead line idea. Let's move up the drum rack and see what else we've got. That's cool, a little riser. Let's put that on beat 1, and let's see what that sounds like. Remember, this is a 2-bar. This is a 2-bar. We got only 2 bars going right now. Let's see. So we gave you notes, individual notes too, in the lead section. Let's. All right, so you can understand, you can see the flexibility and how much fun it is to step sequence with this. And what's great, because Simpler now has warping, and you're able to warp inside of Simpler. All of these are warps. So check this out as we change the tempo. So I can go and mess around on any tempo I want. Everything's warped, and we'll time stretch and stay in time. The final way is using Stank Pack by itself inside of Ableton Live without a push. Donald from Beat Drop is going to take us through that now.
My name's Donald, and I teach Ableton Core 1 and Ableton Quick Start at Beat Drop Music Production and DJing School in Calgary, Alberta. So the first thing is you have to load up the Stank Rack onto a blank MIDI track. So here it is, and I'm going to start by making a MIDI clip. All you have to do to make a MIDI clip is double click in a MIDI clip slot. So right here, if I double click, it makes a 1-bar MIDI clip. So we could just sequence in here with our mouse. I'm just going to double click to add a note, add a kick here, crank up the velocity, another kick, clap, snare, I guess. I should put this guy over here. And maybe I'll add some hi-hats as well. Duplicate that across. Maybe I'll make this last one an open hi-hat. And yeah, let's hear how it sounds. Cool. So that'll work. Most of the loops that we built into this drum rack are 4 bars long. So to take advantage of that, I'm going to make a 4-bar drum loop as well. And to accomplish that, I'm going to use the duplicate loop function here. If I press it once, 1 bar goes to 2, and if I press it twice, 2 bars goes to 4. And now I just have to add a little variation to this clip just to, spice it up a little bit. I'll add a crash cymbal right at the beginning of the loop and a drum fill at the end. Okay, let's hear how that sounds. Cool, so I think that'll work. So now we can move on to our bass. So if you have a really fast computer, this is probably not something you're gonna have to worry about, but if you're working on an older computer, like I tend to do most of the time, you're probably better off using this trick. So what I'm gonna do is duplicate this track to make another instance of our Stank Pack. And I'm gonna rename this new track by pressing Command R, bass. And then I'll freeze the drum track. And really what this allows your computer to do is not think so hard, so it won't be as hard on your CPU, and you'll be able to have more tracks, more automation, and more fun. So for the bass line here, I already have a MIDI clip. I'm going to delete all those drums, and like I mentioned previously, a lot of the loops are 4 bars long, so we can preview them if we check out or if we toggle our MIDI editor preview. And now I can trigger any of these samples that we have in our drum rack from our piano roll. Cool, I like bass too, so that's the one I'm going to use. So you don't have to drag it all the way across. You can just keep it as a really short 16th note. And the reason for that is over here, if you look at our drum rack and click on bass line 2, for example, which is one we're using, we took advantage of one of the new playback modes in Simpler from the 9.5 release, and it's called one-shot mode. So really what that means is if you trigger a sample, the whole thing will play through. Okay, let's hear how this sounds. Cool, I think that sounds pretty good. So we're gonna do that same duplicate trick and freeze. So I'll duplicate this bass line. And I will freeze the original bass track. And I'm gonna rename this one to pads. delete our bass note and just slide up here to see our pads. So the pads are kind of fun too. We have a couple different arpeggiated progressions. We have individual chord hits, and we have some looped sequences that represent different kinds of chord progressions. So I'm going to pick pad 4. And again, it's in one-shot mode, so you really don't have to worry about dragging the note out. So if I trigger scene 1, all these clips will play, and we can check it out. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Make sure you follow us on social medias as well, on Facebook, BeatDrop, and on Twitter @BeatDrop, and Instagram @BeatDrop.
Are you struggling with using the Ableton Push? Ableton Push Core 1 is a 6-week online course for producers and musicians looking to understand how to create, produce, sound design, and mix with the Push. Every Monday, you will be given lessons in the BeatDrop virtual classroom. Lessons will include assignments and exercises to work through that help solidify the concepts from that week's lesson. You can interact with your instructor by sending assignments, homework, and specific questions, and your instructor will return to you one-on-one video feedback. At the end of the week, you'll have a live lecture and a hangout with your class. The instructor will review important elements from the week, will answer questions, and highlight interesting ways of using the Push live and in the studio. Push Core 1 students will receive a 2-month premium subscription to Melodics, a system for practicing pad drumming and cue point drumming. Melodics will be incorporated into our weekly lessons. We believe Push is an incredible instrument that has changed the game for musicians and producers. We want to help you learn and understand how best to use it and integrate it into your workflow. Let us help you by giving you clear instruction, weekly accountability, and inspiration.